Because we're going to talk about a moment during the White House briefings today that we think is probably going to bring Trump's annexation threats back to the top of Canadians' minds. Yesterday, the CBC's Katie Simpson, you know her, she said on the show that she was seeking more clarity from the U.S. administration on potential changes to its auto tariffs. And today, she put her question right to the White House press secretary, plus an additional question about Trump's rhetoric on Canada. And as she does almost every day these days, Katie Simpson joins us now from Washington with some answers. All right, Katie, you were able to ask the press secretary a question. I want to show this. That's Katie Simpson right there. Just if we can zoom in on this. That's Katie right there in the White House briefing room asking the question. You were able to ask the press secretary two today. What did you learn from all of this?
Yeah, I can't see the photo that you put up there, but those press briefing rooms are pretty packed. And so it's pretty competitive to try to get a question. And so, because everyone, just imagine it, it's a room full of reporters that are, reporting back to, dozens and dozens of journalists, news agencies all around the world. And today I happened to get a couple of questions in. The first question I wanted to ask about was tariffs, because of course, the Canadian economy relies so heavily on trade with the United States. And so I asked about that first. And then sort of a question that has sort of been nagging at Canadians. Some Canadians think, why would I ask a question about annexation when Donald Trump hasn't talked about it? But that's exactly what I wanted to know, is why hasn't he talked about it? Something changed. Anyway, have a listen. Tariffs first, Canada second. Annexation second. Have a listen.
Yesterday, in the Oval Office, President Trump suggested that there could be some help for automakers. I'm wondering what that looks like. Is it tariff relief on the 25% tariffs that are in place right now, or the new tariffs that are coming up in May on auto parts? And a second on Canada, if I may. President Trump's tone when it comes to Canada-U.S. relations, Canadians have noticed it's shifted a bit in the past few weeks. Ever since the election campaign started, he stopped talking about Canada becoming the 51st state, at least publicly. I'm wondering if that's on purpose and why.
I would reject the president's position on Canada has shifted. Perhaps he just hasn't been asked about Canada by questions from this group in the Oval Office, but they see him almost every day. But the president still maintains his position on Canada. The United States has been subsidizing Canada's national defense, and he believes that Canadians would benefit greatly from becoming the 51st state of the United States of America. As for autos and auto parts, I don't have anything to read out for you there, but I think the point the president was making is flexibility, and he has flexibility when it comes to negotiations and talks, but ultimately his goal in his fair trade deals that he is pursuing with many countries around the world is to put the American worker first. And we had automakers and auto workers here at the White House on Liberation Day who believe in this president and his negotiating ability to put them first and to bring those jobs back to the United States of America. And the president's been very clear about that in his conversations with the automakers as well.
So Trump had said in the Oval Office on Monday that he was looking at getting some help to car makers because they need a little bit more time. It was unclear whether he meant that there could be some sort of pause for the tariffs on the auto sector that are in place right now, or whether it would be related to the upcoming tariffs on auto parts, foreign auto parts that are supposed to take effect in May. Any sort of changes or pause or anything could have significant impact on Canadian jobs, Canadian auto plants, that kind of thing. So in terms of what the president said on Monday, there's no further explanation or anything new from the president on that. And then when it comes to, what Donald Trump has said many times in the past, he sort of eased off on that rhetoric, and I wanted to know why. Is it on purpose? Has he changed his mind? Was he irked by Justin Trudeau and only said it to get under Justin Trudeau's skin, or is there something different going on here? So that's why I wanted to know why. Anyway, so that she says that his position is not changed in this moment.
Okay, that's going to be a thunderbolt into this campaign, Katie. But when it comes to the broader trade war, because it changes on the regular, what is the White House saying today?
The White House had a direct message for Beijing today, saying the ball is in China's court, essentially saying it's going to be up to Beijing to reach out at this point, and that Karoline Leavitt saying the point is that, China needs to make a deal with the United States. The United States doesn't need to make a deal with China. Remember, China is the biggest target of Donald Trump's trade war. For years, it has been criticized for its trading practices. It is an American adversary. And remember, Canadians who who live in the world of trade, I think of canola, do know that they can face extreme challenges when trying to deal with China in sort of a consistent way. It can be very difficult because there are times when China doesn't necessarily play by the rules that the rest of the world does, particularly when it comes to trade. We can talk about other things as well, but we're just talking about trade in this conversation right here. In terms of China's response, Xi Jinping is on the second day of his multi-country tour. He's trying to get out there, meeting with leaders in Malaysia today to try and present China and Beijing as a stable, reliable trading partner at a time when the United States is threatening tariffs and imposing tariffs on nearly all of its trading partners. But again, that could be a difficult task depending on how China is presenting itself, given its history of some concerns around its trading practices.
Right.
But that is what the Chinese president is up to. He's got one more stop on this tour as he tries to sort of shore up some regional alliances and sort of present China as a stable, reliable trading partner, something that the United States would deeply criticize.
Okay, Katie, great stuff today. Thanks so much to CBC's Katie Simpson live in Washington. Well, Honda confirmed today it has no current plans to move any auto manufacturing out of Canada. That was after a report from Japanese media that the company was considering a relocation. The Liberal, Conservative, and NDP leaders were all in Montreal today speaking about that threat.
The U.S., President Trump's tariffs are attacking our auto industry. This is one of the crown jewels of North American manufacturing.
President Trump deserves nothing but condemnation for the unfair targeting of Canada. There's nobody who's going to be able to control President Trump, as Mr. Carney is learning.
We know that many sectors are being impacted, so it really highlights how we need to really fight back and get these tariffs removed.
Okay, I'm back at the big table with the power panel. Michelle, this is quite the thunderbolt into the campaign, as I said with Katie. I think that right there from the White House lectern in the briefing room, the 51st state is still what he wants to do.
Yeah, and it's just a reminder that even though he's opening up war with other countries, it doesn't mean that he's taken his eye off of Canada. He hasn't let up on the auto tariffs. Hopefully, he is actually feeling the pressure, and he's going to maybe release that a little bit. But that doesn't mean anything for steel. He's got another front apparently on pharmaceuticals and chips that he wants to open up in the next little while. I'm sure Greenland's in the same position as Canada. Like, he has his eyes on us. He thinks our border is arbitrary, and he is someone that we are going to have to be facing down. He looms large over this election campaign. He looms large over our future. And, it makes what the vote is on the 28th so much more important. We have to be able to stand up to him. We have to be able to carve our own path economically. And we have to make our decision based on who's the best to lead us through that.
Francoise, thankfully, the Honda report either is premature or imprecise, but you can see the anxiety and the nerves of anything to do with the auto sector right now. I mean, the 1-2 punch of that, followed by Trump getting back on his commentary about annexation, or at least his spokesperson doing that.
Well, I think it's a reminder to all of us that even if for the last 48 hours we didn't say the word Trump too loudly, doesn't mean that he's absent, that everything is settled and everything is good and back to normal. It will never be normal at all. So that was a good reminder today with what happened. And you had Premier Doug Ford coming out and saying, whoa, that's not what is being said. At the same time, we cannot be naive and think that there's nothing brewing somewhere, because we've got a version from Honda Canada, but you also have Honda. And the mothership seems to say, well, they are reviewing a few things because they have to think, how do we deal with the states and so on and so forth. We had Donald Trump yesterday reversing a few things and thinking out loud like only him can do. So I wouldn't say so well, but so incredibly weird way, which brings back people to, we don't exactly know how to dance. So it just has to have the impact of saying, until you sign, and even a signature from Donald Trump, I would have some worries, but until we sign a new deal between Canada and the US and hopefully Mexico at the same time, I think we're going to dance that way. And in this election, it brings back the headline. Who do you think is more apt to deal and navigate in the next 2-3 years with that situation.
Cheryl, what do you think this does? I mean, we're into the stretch run here with the debates coming tomorrow at 6 p.m. for the French one, and still hopefully at 7 on Thursday. But to have this sort of re-injecting itself this way.
Yeah, I do think it is a reminder, and it does kind of entrench everybody in their position. I don't know if the parties, the political leaders, everybody who's running have taken their eyes off of that prize, so to speak, because they know that if they want to grasp people's attention, if they want to really fire up Canadians in the sense with that sense of nationalism, then Donald Trump is the perfect foil for that. So the fact that, tariffs are ongoing, the fact that Donald Trump, he may have not have been using that specific, terminology and vocabulary about the 51st state in the last, couple of weeks, but he hasn't not been talking about Canada. Even during, in the garden on his, Liberation Day at the beginning of the month, he still, unprompted, even though Canada wasn't on the list for these so-called reciprocal tariffs, he was still talking about, how nasty and terrible Canada is. So it's not something that I think anybody on the political front has forgotten about, but I do think it does, as Francois said, just kind of reiterate and entrench for people, who are you looking for? Who is supposed to be the best leader? And it helps, I think it helps, whether it's Mark Carney, whether it's Pierre Poilievre, it helps them, frame their arguments about, okay, Donald Trump is still talking about Canada in this way, so therefore Mark Carney didn't get the job done.
What do you think, Kate? I mean, I don't know if this is what the Conservatives wanted to hear today from the White House, right? They're trying to focus it back on the issues that they want to campaign on, and this happens.
But there's actually political consensus right now that Canada will not be the 51st state.
Sure, 100%.
Point final,
100%.
all of the leaders have been super clear on that. I think both Carney and Poilievre shot that down really fast. So I think to Cheryl's point, and Francois' point, it's a reminder. It will entrench for people something that's already known. It's been lingering out there for some time. So we're going to continue to operate in chaos. It is a feature. It is not a bug of this administration. So what are we going to do to meet that chaos as a country? What are we going to do from a policy perspective to make sure that we're self-reliant and that we can be strong? I noticed that the press secretary to Mr. Trump talked about defense spending. There has been some discussion about that from some on the campaign, but that call out of that specifically I thought was interesting today. So I think we have these threats. That's not going to change. It's not going to change until we have a bilateral agreement in place, I think. I don't know why he would remove that chit. So we need to get back to how Canada is going to meet these threats. Today, news about housing starts being down, news about food inflation being up. Like, we have serious problems as a country that we need to prepare, that we need to remedy in order to meet that threat that's being posed by the U.S. And so there needs to be a conversation that includes all of these things, not just psychoanalyzing somebody who should be spending a lot of time lying flat on a back in a therapist chair.
Wait, look, I'm not asking anyone to psychoanalyze the president, but every time he becomes sort of a focal point, it seems to supercharge the Liberals. You know what I mean? Like, this has been that it allows Mr. Carney to, campaign as the prime minister. He can sometimes go back, call a cabinet meeting, these sorts of things. I mean,
and we'll see if he pauses his campaign for a fourth time to weigh the threat that was announced today from the president. But listen, I think that there is a bit of an incumbent advantage there to the prime minister in terms of how he would deal with that, and he can articulate Canada's response in the way that somebody challenging for that seat cannot. But I do think that where the real challenge is and the real debate is on how Canada is going to prepare and whether or not Canadians want to hand another 4 years to the group that was responsible for the last 10.
How do you see it playing, Michelle? I mean, it's. It is the issue, when the ballot question is about dealing with Trump, the Liberals feel it is to their benefit.
Well, I think that it's clear that that is the ballot question. And I don't know that Canadians needed reminding, to be honest. Last week, even though he wasn't mentioning Canada, anyone who looked at their RRSPs or, their RESPs or looked at, how they were trying to save for their first home, sure felt it when, Trump's tariffs went wild and the markets went insane. Equally, when he backed off, they saw that it kind of came back again. So I think Canadians are very well aware of the chaos that man is having on our livelihoods, on the cost of living here, and on our future. And so I don't think that was done for any favor, But certainly, maybe it did put it into sharper focus of what the issue of the day is, and probably what Canadians are talking about around the water cooler. I don't know that it made the Liberals' day all that much better, because let's face it, that threat is a real threat for Canada, and I don't think anyone takes any comfort from that.
Okay, go ahead.
I just want to add, what makes this election so weird and fascinating at the same time is that everything we said is right. But tomorrow we've got a debate en français, and then the next day in English. Not one party has presented a costed platform. Usually that's how it used to work. And then you had leaders asking, hey, this line. I still remember Prime Minister Trudeau looking at O'Toole and saying, sorry, but that's not what you're saying on page 49. I don't remember what they were talking about. But it was a big moment in a campaign. Now it's more a question of just personality. We don't exactly know how we are going to go and get out of that mess, what type of deal we're looking for. So we have to make a leap of faith in a personality, whoever it is. Du jamais vu. And since I followed politics, I've never seen that before. It's amazing.
I think it was about guns last time, wasn't it? Because I remember there was an issue, the Conservatives put out their campaign, correct me if I'm wrong, Kate, day one, essentially. The O'Toole in the tight T-shirt platform came out on day one, and then they had to do some amendments to it, right? It was a navy blue. It was a conservative blue. Come on now. But I don't remember like Andrew Scheer's cost of platform coming out until near the end of the 2019 campaign. Just thinking of that. That's just, I covered both of those. That's why I remember.
They released a pretty comprehensive environmental platform first.
Yeah.
To try and get ahead of a lot of the conversation at that point around climate change. But yeah, I think honestly, strategically, release your platform after the debate, right? To avoid the 2021 incident of nitpicking things in the platform and then calling attention to it on the debate stage. I think there is a strategic reason why none of the major parties are choosing to do that at this point.
Well, but also, that's not what this campaign's about, right?
But that was my point, exactly.
It should be absolutely.
It's not about
You might want it to be, but that existential question is what Canadians care about, and that's what they're going to be focused on. They want the government, whoever is in power, to be spending the money to help transition whatever happens to we have a whole bunch of workers who lose their jobs. They want businesses to be supported. We don't know what chaos is still to come with Trump, but we need somebody who's in charge who actually understands the support that Canadians and
But we do need we need a prime minister and a team for 4 years, not the next 6 months, which is likely when on an accelerated time frame that we will have a renegotiated bilateral agreement. Like there is a lot more going on in Canada than just the
renegotiated bilateral agreement with Donald Trump, and he's thrown that aside and torn it apart. Do you think any piece of paper is going to keep that man honest with respect to any kind of negotiation around the world?
Yeah,
I don't believe it.
I asked myself that question, but
maybe
he's got the excuse of Joe Biden. So he can say, I signed the greatest deal on earth in 2018. And then came Joe Biden. People exploited us, went through, not my fault, all their fault, Canada's bad, the world is bad, and now let's move on to a new. The minute you will sign something, he will live with this, because I do believe he's going to be a man of his word on his last word.
Oh, we'll see. I mean, 90-day pause, will it last 90 hours? Who knows, right? Like, we'll see. But Cheryl, just give you the last word on this. Like, a cost of platform, we all like to see the plan and how it all stacks up. I don't know how any party does anything with a credible financial projection right now. And that's not because of them, it's because of Donald Trump, right? Like, you don't know where trade is going to go, you don't know where employment's going to go, and what you think is a real solid balance of revenues and cuts, and it might not last the day, depending on what he does.
Right, whether it's a platform, whether it's any government's budget. I mean, we saw what happened with the Trudeau Liberals trying to put together a fall economic statement, and how that kind of devolved even before the day of, but even just them trying to pull it all together to come up with measures and things to put into that to respond to an incoming, at that point, president. So yes, any party, it's important to have the numbers and see what kind of math they're trying to put forward. If it's liberal math, there's conservative math, there's NDP math. But any of that could easily have a hole blown in it in the next day.